Hey everybody, welcome to Banjo Quest. I hope you're all doing well. We are in the middle of the Blueprints of Clawhammer Banjo series, and we have been focused on that striking hand. Today I want to turn away from the striking hand and look at some fretting techniques, the three basic families of fretting techniques, today on Banjo Quest. But before we do that, I did want to alert you to two things. The first thing I wanted to mention is that I will be appearing at the Midsummer Online Banjo Fest with some of my banjo heroes. I'm really excited for this. We have been encouraged as participants to be as creative as possible in generating our workshop material, and you can bet that the workshops are going to be incredible and stuff that you can't get anywhere else, especially now since all of the camps are pretty much closed or have been moved online. And keep in mind, when you buy a ticket, you are supporting traditional acoustic musicians. The second thing I wanted to mention is that now is a really good time to join me over on Patreon. July is going to be chock full of great material, including a much anticipated Sawmill Bootcamp, where we for 7 days live stream together and work on our right and left hands in sawmill tuning. It's going to be a blast. The other thing is that t-shirts will be going on sale. I have commissioned this amazing epic piece of art that will be available on sale for patrons only at first. They're going to get first dibs. If you want in on the most epic banjo t-shirt, in my opinion, that has ever been conceived, hop on over to Patreon and check it out. Now, let's get into the material today. I like to think of fretting hand techniques as falling into three distinct families. We're going to talk about the hammer-on family today because I think it's, out of the three, the easiest one to do and get your mind around. Now, one of the interesting things about fretting hand technique is that the fretting hand does its action when the right hand is doing its upstroke. So you need to trade in your fifth string strike for a fretting hand technique. That's how I think about it. It's not talked about a lot, but I think that timing between the striking hand and the fretting hand are really important in getting that sort of clockwork-like sound where the right and the left hands are working together independently, but together like two gears in a watch where the teeth are meshing perfectly. So as you perform these techniques, don't only think about what your fretting hand is doing, but try to line up the action of the fretting hand with your striking hand. And I'm going to explain that in more detail during this lesson. Now, if you want tablature for this lesson, it is available for patrons over on Patreon. I'll leave the link below. Let's get to work. So the pattern we're going to be working with today is as follows. I'm in double C. Here's the pattern. My fretting hand is loose but engaged. It's not bearing down. When I hammer into the first fret, first string, I'm using my index finger to do so, and I'm clamping down with some force. Not a ton, but some force has to impact that string to give me a nice clear sound. And the way I like to think about a hammer-on is that it should stand up to the previous downstroke. For example, the previous downstroke is on an open first string. When I drop my hammer, it should be nice and crisp and loud. If it's very, very quiet, you need to investigate your fretting technique. Let's talk about that a little bit. A lot of people think of the fretting technique as a finger technique, but I've changed the way I think about the fretting hand. My fretting hand is firing deep in the forearm. It's not a finger motion, but it is more of a forearm clamping the hand down into the palm. And you'll notice that when I hammer on, I'm moving multiple fingers at once. It's an easy thing to misunderstand in the beginning, especially for beginning players. They think, oh, hammer on with the index finger means I've got to single out that index finger and press it into the fret. But that's not the case. That's really hard to do with any consistency. And if you can do it, it's kind of a weak, anemic approach to fretting the instrument. I prefer to use more energy, the energy of my hand, as if my hand is closing like a mousetrap on the strings, so I'm nice and loose. I do my downstroke, I have a little wind up, and on the upstroke, I clamp down with multiple fingers, but only one finger is hitting the fret on the upstroke of the right hand, my striking hand. Now watch carefully the timing between my striking hand and my fretting hand. Watch how they work as gears in a watch. Let's speed up this pattern. We can go faster. And faster. Now, a couple things to watch out for. I like to think of this hammer-on as a pair of eighth notes. We have an open first string, and the second half of that pair is a fretted second fret first string. That's a pair. That is a hammer-on pair. And so when I vocalize, of course, I say hammer. Now, one of the things I have my students focus on when they're working with an eighth note pair with a left-hand action involved is paying attention to the time value of the origin note. The origin note is simply the first note in an eighth note pair. It's the open first string. And the reason is I've observed a strange phenomenon over the years where people have a propensity to rush into the fretting hand action and not give that initial note, the initiating note of that two-note pair, its full time value. And so you get sort of this strangely compressed eighth note sound that doesn't sound great. It sounds like this. Sort of all over the map with that action being of interest to the player, and so the mind just funnels into that faster tempo and you lose that origin note of that two-note pair. So one of the things to pay attention to in your own playing is giving the origin note its fair time value. Let it be open, let it ring, give it time, and then drop the hammer and then proceed with the other eighth note pair, the ditty. Should hear that clear division between the first eighth note and the second eighth note. The other thing to be aware of is that when folks work on this, at least the folks that I've observed over the years, the fifth string often suddenly drops out completely. So don't forget to wind that entire pattern up with a nice big fifth string strike. It's really easy to forget that, but I think of the fifth string as syntax. It's Clawhammer Banjo syntax, and without that period at the end of the sentence, we get a run-on sentence. Make sure your fifth string is really loud and ringing. Now, the timing between right and left hands is really interesting here. I throw my hand in, I drop the hammer, and the right hand comes off the instrument, thumb included. Make sure that action is happening with these two hands kind of working in opposition but together. So as the right hand comes off the instrument, the finger drops on the hammer. The other thing to keep in mind is that with every downstroke in this pattern, I am connecting with the fifth string, even though I'm not going to sound the fifth string after the initial downstroke. So for example, if I'm throwing in, even though I'm not going to sound this fifth string on the upstroke because I'm trading it for a hammer-on, I'm still coming into contact with that fifth string. This ties back to the golden rule of Clawhammer Banjo. The thumb always travels with the strike in and out, regardless of whether the thumb is going to sound the fifth string or not. Now, over on Patreon, I will have a series of check patterns and exercises for hammer-on in double C. I hope you join me over there, including a special video for patrons only. Until next time, I will see you on Banjo Quest, and I do hope I'll see many of you at the Midsummer Online Banjo Festival.